Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal. The next World of Warcraft expansion of Midnight is going to be getting a massive announcement on August the 19th with the expansion reveal, with a big cinematic, and likely going to be revealing everything we know about the next chapter of the World Soul Saga, arriving in just a handful of days. However, before we even got a proper reveal of the Midnight expansion, we've gotten so many different leaks over the past few weeks. And for the most part, I've been tamed. I've been doing my job of really taking a close, hard look at everything coming out for 11.2. There's a lot of guides for me to get through, but in the background, I have been compiling all these different leaks in a single folder, which I kind of wanted to release all in a single video here, going over everything we know regarding the Midnight expansion, from potential story leaks, expansion features, how housing may actually be coming out a lot earlier, as well as some of the wildest screenshots that I've ever seen for the Midnight expansion that may swing its storyline in a direction that nobody would have expected. As always, if you guys want to keep up with regular updates, especially regarding the next WoW expansion of Midnight, be sure to follow the channel and subscribe. But otherwise, let's dive right in. By the way, as you're watching this video, we'll be doing a live stream when they're doing proper Midnight reveal on the 19th. So definitely subscribe to the channel in order to get a notification when the stream goes live. If you want to join the watch party, we'll be doing a live react as well as going over everything that we see during Gamescom, whether WoW or non-related. But besides this, the leaks around Midnight have just been kind of crazy. I mean, we know that the expansion is right around the corner, but everything from these leaks and everything that we have so far regarding some of the future PTR server updates makes us think that there's probably not going to be a season 4 of The War Within. Blizzard hasn't confirmed anything whatsoever. In previous expansions, they had a season 4, which was like a holdover season, allowing us to go back to old dungeons, old raids, all of them all at once, with some expedited gear upgrades, similar to Turbo Boost, but like much faster than that. Bunch of gear vendors, which is actually very similar to Turbo Boost, but it looks like we potentially may not be doing a season 4 this time around, which is just very likely. We've seen that in PTR, there's an internal build where they're ready to go with 11.2, or rather 12.0 testing. I keep calling it 11.2, but 12.0, the expansion of Midnight, as well as the patch 11.25, which recently hit PTR in its full glory. That thing has actually been on the internal side of testing for a very long time, and it looks like a lot of work has went into Legion Remix, just playing out through some of the different quest lines. There's a ton of voice acting, there's a ton of different storylines, there's a ton of things going on, so it seems like they've been cooking this project for quite a bit of time, as well as a showcase build, whatever it may be, with many players assuming that that's likely going to be a big housing update for Gamescom specifically, but that thing has been around on the PTR realms, or on the testing realms, for a while without us being able to get access to it. But a lot of the times those builds are not actually live for us to see. They're usually hidden for a reason, but Blizzard just left this one out. They're just flagrantly just flaunting all of their future builds and internal alphas and things like that for a while now, which I think is just normally when they don't want people to see that there's builds to work on, they just keep them hidden. But the only reason they would pop them on like that is because they want everybody to know about it or to even talk about it. So this is done at this point on purpose, and this is something they've done in the past a lot when it comes to some of the different leaks for things. This is just them letting us know that this is what they're working on, this is their focus, and in some cases I think is them hinting that there will likely won't be many more updates for War Within, and they're really just loading up a lot of the focus towards Midnight. So likely season 3 might be the final season, but nothing 100% until they give us that direct information. However, one thing they couldn't keep hidden, apparently, is the early housing preview and early housing access when it comes to the next expansion of Midnight. For a little bit of time, a short bit of time, when players logged into the patch 11.2, we found out that there's actually showed up some art as well as some info regarding being able to purchase the next expansion of Midnight without players actually being able to do so just yet. But the actual contents of that expansion have been revealed through the shop, which is super unfortunate for them, but very fortunate for us, because we get to see exactly what comes with the next expansion, whether you get the base edition, heroic edition, or epic edition. Previously, the base edition was just an expansion, like for War Within, that also came with a character boost just so more players could dive into the next new update. The Heroic Edition for War Within, I believe, had some sort of cosmetic bonus or amount, extra trader's tender for any of the cosmetics you want to purchase on the trading post, but that's really about it. And then they decided to give early access to War Within 3 days early with a guaranteed beta with the Epic Edition. And Midnight is very, very similar to it. So there are going to be some parts about this that players are really going to hate. If you hated this early access whole thing that they did for War Within, there is going to be more of that for Midnight by the looks of it. But also there's also going to be some fun early access that I think a lot of players are going to love, such as Midnight Edition, Base Edition, including War Within expansion, plus Midnight, plus a level 80 character boost to get you into Midnight as early as possible, Trader's Tender, as well as housing early access as part of the Base Edition. We know that housing is going to be a pretty ambitious feature for this expansion, and it looks like they have a build that will be made available super early to everybody that has the Base Edition. Like bare bones early, if you end up getting the pre-order for the Base Edition, you'll be able to dive into housing, which is super exciting. It's very similar to how right before an expansion releases, players get access to like a brand new class when they do introduce a brand new class. So housing is going to be that major feature, and it's awesome to see it as a baseline version. Heroic Edition, from what we know, will have very similar stuff to Base Edition, such as both expansions, a level boost, even more Trader's Tender, are also housing early access, as well as a Light Strider's Raiment transmog, and as well as a mount. With the expansion of Midnight being a Light versus Void themed expansion, we're expecting a lot of Light versus Void themed elements in here, as well as the Epic Edition, which has everything Heroic Edition has, as well as the base. Both expansions, character boost, more Trader's Tender, housing early access, Light Rider's Mog and Mount, but also 2 additional Void Mounts, 2 additional Battle Pets, beta access to Midnight guaranteed, and as well as a 3-day early access, which is definitely something the community had an issue with in War Within, and likely will continue to have an issue in Midnight. As for the early access, that you're not really getting early access for endgame content, because for like the very first week or 2 of leveling, they don't have any endgame available whatsoever. You're just basically being able to beat the rush and start leveling your character a couple of days early before everybody else starts leveling. You won't have any advantages in terms of like being able to get early gear, early honor gear. You'll simply will just have a little bit extra access, with a lot of the game literally blocked off when it comes to your progression, with pretty big limitations overall. Aside of this, though, the Epic Edition also does come with the Midnight Housing Bundle, which will have a Light and a Void Gazebo, a Light Void Fountains, and a bunch of portraits, which may actually be a bit of a story spoiler, so I won't really reveal them here for this video specifically. But it looks like the additions are ready to go, and they might become available as early as the announcement during Gamescom, as the housing early access, if that's something that's available for even a Base Edition, it sounds like they have housing basically ready to go right now, and something you actually may be able to unlock in just a handful of days as you're watching this video. Outside of this, we also did have a bunch of different little story spoilers come out over the last few weeks, and I wanted to leave this towards the tail end of the video, so if you really do not want to see any potential story spoilers for the Midnight expansion, which I'll talk about here in a second, parts that I like, parts that I don't, this is a good opportunity for you to end the video, and if you do, give the video a like. I would very much appreciate it. Helps more people reach the helps videos just reach a wider audience, and subscribe for future Midnight announcements and that Midnight stream later in a handful of days. However, as for the actual spoilers itself, if you played Shadowlands, I got some bad news for you, because it looks like Jailer potentially may be making a return. We don't know if he's going to play a big or a small part, but there's been a couple of different screenshots for what looks like potentially would be a cinematic for the Midnight expansion, with the big man right there, his husk left in Zereth Mortis, and in the background, Xal'atath looks like approaching him as well. As a World Soul Saga, as like a saga of 3 expansions, their whole purpose for the saga is to tie in a bunch of loose ends from previous expansions, from Wrath of Lich King, Cataclysm, Mists of Pandaria, BFA, Shadowlands, Legion, and find a way to tie up all that story at the end of the day. What they've done with Koresh, for example, how Ethereals and the Brokers from Shadowlands come from the same homeworld, and they're actually kind of very, very similar to each other, and how they end up coming back to that home world with us defeating Dimensius. And this is something that a lot of players actually did enjoy and would want to see. Even from Shadowlands, one of the main villains of that expansion, Denathrius from the Revendreth faction, that's another character that still has a bit of story to tell, as they kind of just left it on a hang. They never really completed his storyline, but that was a compelling character that a lot of players enjoyed. They felt like Denathrius was very iconic for that expansion, and for the faction of Revendreth in general, was a very interesting character, and it will be interesting to see how his story ends in the World Soul Saga. However, Jailer? I'm not so sure. I feel like out of all the different villains they've created with WoW, from Illidan to Arthas and other compelling characters, I feel like Jailer, in my personal opinion, should just be left alone, as they presented him as this big mastermind who orchestrated everything from the end of Legion with the fall of Argus and the soul of Argus, you know, barreling down into the Shadowlands and disrupting the current Oracle, and the whole Arthas picking up Frostborn, which somehow connected to the Jailer, to him being released from the Maw. It just felt undeserved. It just wasn't cooked super well. As a storyline, the character was flawed, even though the Shadowlands itself, as like the environment, is kind of interesting. There's the first ones who created this machine of afterlife called the Shadowlands, and there's progenitors of it from the different covenants that have a specific role to serve. Then there's also the first ones, which adds a little bit of more mystery and makes players wonder if, like, what is the connection to the rest of the WoW cosmic forces? And like, are they very similar to the Titans? Are they something that is more ancient than the Titans themselves, since potentially they could have come before the Titans? What was their whole purpose? What did they disappear off to? Like, the Shadowlands as a zone was created almost like a machine to churn out souls into anima. And they're left a lot of those like unanswered questions by the end of it all. There's a lot of opportunity for them to explore more of it and tie off the rest of the expansion and everything they've wanted to create for it but never really fully realized. And there's a lot of cool things basically when it comes to the Shadowlands and the environments, but the Jailer himself just wasn't that well written, wasn't really super compelling as a villain, and did not really feel like he deserved that villainous mantle. At least compared to like Arthas or Illidan, which are some of the better well-written characters that are like the bad guy character, but they really have like a compelling reason as to why they became what they became. And those are probably some of the best written characters in media in general. But with that, I do want to kind of leave off with your thoughts. What do you think about this Jailer screenshot? Do you think it's real, or potentially is it just going to be mentioning Jailer, but he's not really going to be part of the story? What do you think his connection to Xal'atath potentially is going to be? And also, what other characters would you want to see return for the Midnight expansion? So they're tying off a lot of loose ends with many different characters and storylines looking to get some sort of an ending. What other characters would you want to see potentially showing up during the expansion of Midnight from any of the previous expansions we've had so far? Let me know those thoughts in the comments down below. But with that, as always, I do want to thank all of you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you did enjoy it or found it informative, go ahead and give this video a like. I would very much appreciate that. Also, be sure to join our Discord community, especially if you want to join in on any of the Midnight discussions. Also, another way for you to be able to get notified whenever the stream goes live for the Midnight Gamescom announcements and such. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and as always, I'll see all of you guys in the next one.